Good morning. I'm Emily Reddick, Executive Director at MASSCreative. This is our Friday Policy and Action Update. I'm really glad to have a number of guest speakers who are going to join us today to talk about their approaches to Phase 3 reopening, which started for Massachusetts on Monday. And excuse me, woo, that's not what we want. There we go. It started on Monday, July 6th. For the city of Boston, it actually is delayed a week, so it will start next Monday, July 13th. Just really, I want to highlight the reopening starts and reopening phases are all data driven. And it's important to note that we could go back a step or a phase if data indicates an increase in COVID-19 cases. And we all know, we've got the science that tells us that proper social distancing, wearing masks, and taking extra hand washing precautions helps keep cases down. And so what I'm really glad is we've got a number of folks who are all thinking about that work in terms of how they are reopening. The other point I want to make is that cities and towns also have authority and control. And so just like we saw with the city of Boston being able to delay a week, that every city and town has a board of health, and that we really encourage liaising with your city and town elected officials and administrators in this work of reopening. So we are going to move on. So our first guest is Alexis Stansky-Murphy from Mass Motion Dance. Alexis, thanks for joining us to talk about how your studio is reopening.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you all for being part of this meeting today. It's really exciting to have people to share ideas with, because this is a very interesting time that we are all living in for the arts. As Emily said, we are Mass Motion Dance. We are located in Brighton, in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, and in Medfield, Massachusetts. With our 3 locations, we have both suburban families and city families who are finding and coping with all the challenges of this COVID-19 time. We have been Zooming classes online since March, and that has been at an exhausting pace. And as of last week, we were lucky enough to start to get back into the studio in our suburban locations, and we are very much looking forward to getting back into the studio hopefully next week at our Boston studio. In order to do that, we've been having trouble trying to adapt and find guidelines that work for us, because we are considered part of the outdoor-indoor sports athletic facilities as far as dance studios go. That's what we are part of, which adds some challenges to figuring out what that exactly means with our indoor dance space. We did do some outside dancing in parking lots just to get some kids motivated and moving forward and keeping them at social distancing toward the end of the spring when Phase 2 opened up. But as you can see, there's a picture of our studio here in this slide that Emily provided. And we have basically created a grid-like system in every single studio that we have. They're 10-foot by 10-foot blocks, which will definitely bring our class size down immensely. So we will not be able to have as many students as we currently had in studio. As you can see, the chairs are 6 feet apart. We've created a protocol for all students who will come into the building. They will go directly to their chair. That chair will be assigned to them. They are chairs that can be Lysoled and cleaned as soon as the kids leave for the day. We've created a mask protocol list that we've already sent out to our parents and students, explain to them how they come into the building, how there is no lobby space, there is no, they have to wear their masks as they come in, they have to wear their masks as they go out, and everything has to be spatially distanced. So we've also, to adhere to all the guidelines, we put up hand sanitizers within every studio, outside every door. We have all of our COVID-19 plan listed at our front door so everyone can see it. We've blown up posters of social distancing masks. We have spaces on the floor for our smaller students to remind them to keep 6 feet distance from, 6 to 10 feet distance from everyone else who's dancing. So we feel like we've hit all of the protocols necessary to get the studio running and going. Now we're just hoping that parents will and I'm sure this is for everyone across the board, will come back. We want everyone to come back now. now we need to also have support in getting people through the door in the fall as well. So I think we've been working really hard to create some protocol and guidelines, and it's been hard to find them. So we've been working with other studios and other states and trying to figure out what everyone's doing and creating those protocols.
Great. Thank you, Alexis. Thanks for that update. I'm just having a moment of technical updates, so just give me a second. So we're going to move on we're going to talk to, sorry, Jody Joseph with Mass MoCA. One moment. Jody, we're going to get loaded on the slides if you want to get started.
Thank you, and thanks for the last minute slide additions. At MASSCreative, we, there is an abundance of space. We are privileged to be the largest contemporary art museum in the country, 250,000 square feet of indoor gallery spaces. But that doesn't really translate to our admission services and certain stairwells and walkways, which can be pinch points and potentials for a bottleneck. So what we have done is moved our entire box office operation out of doors under tents. We MASSCreative had our local tent supplier was in our front parking lot within about 10 minutes of Governor Baker's Phase 3 guidance announcement, and I won't say on which side of the announcement that 10 minutes fell, but we wasted no time, needless to say, to just get an outdoor operation up and running. We have some experience with that from our outdoor festivals, so we recreated a model that we use for music festivals to apply to advanced timed registration for museum admissions. We are reducing capacity in the galleries just so that we can reduce, again, potential for traffic and bottlenecks, person-to-person interactions. We're asking people, again, to register in advance. That's all new, as you, I'm sure, recognize for museum goers. We are a walk-up industry, so we've turned that on its head. It's going pretty well. We've actually sold a couple thousand tickets already, but we are only admitting 75 people per hour. So we're just, again, finding ways to limit traffic congestion. We also have had to reimagine our performing arts stages. We are not distancing from artists. We are floating above them. Our artists will be elevated on a stage that rises about 1 full story above our audience. So, and we're, we had those gallery spaces and the outdoor concert courtyards to accommodate them, but we are now taking a space for 4,000 and fitting 100 people in that space. So again, it will feel socially distant sort of naturally. We also had our walkthrough with the building inspectors yesterday. So we spent 2 hours walking through the facility before we open the doors, which happens in 7 minutes here. We'll welcome our first post-COVID visitors.
That is amazing, Jody, and congratulations on opening today. We are so glad to have you. So right now, everyone should see the tent being erected in the courtyard of MASSCreative, and prior to that, we had just very briefly the guidelines that around museums, cultural and historical facilities, and guided tours. So next we're going to move on and we're going to talk to Kathy Carr-Kelly from Central Square Theater. As part of Phase 3, Step 1, outdoor theaters and performance venues are allowed.
Really important call, the kind where you can't come in.
Sorry, Margaret, Maggie, we're going to mute you.
Sorry.
Sorry, so Kathy, so here's the guidelines that are out for outdoor venues. But Kathy's going to talk about an effort in Central Square around an outdoor venue. Thanks, Kathy.
Sure. Thanks, Emily, and thanks to everyone. It's good to see you guys. So we're excited about Starlight Square, as it has been named. It was created by the Business Improvement District and the City of Cambridge. It's been a huge, large, quick effort. So we have a 121-day permit. set by executive order from the city to create and inhabit Starlight Square. So if you look at the first, actually before I do that, Starlight Square is a direct action to amplify the arts for healing, entertainment, and community. Central Square is a cultural district, and the partners in this effort are the Cultural District, The Bid, Central Square Theater, Front Porch Arts Collective, Dance Complex, Improv Boston, our 2 AME churches, the Community Arts Center, and a few other groups as well. So it is a large collaboration. The space itself was built to respond to COVID, so it is built for distancing. If you look at the picture you see on your, I believe it's your right, it sort of gives you an idea of the whole picture. Graffiti Alley, I don't know how many people know that, but if you know the square, it's next to H Mart. Go through Graffiti Alley, and then you have a large parking lot area. So they've commandeered these parking lots. There's space for community art, sort of general social distance gathering, and then the theater space itself. The theater itself is, the walls are scaffolding about 3 stories high, with a scrim that allows for air to come in and through, but also gives it a sort of decorative feel. The scrim is being painted by some local young muralists. So the space itself, the idea with the space itself is to avoid high density situations. It is actually built at this speaking for 150 people, socially distanced, 6 feet all the way around in pods of 2, 3, or 4. There is riser seating, as you see on the sides, and then also floor seating. Distancing for all the actors, we're looking at a few very small 3-person performances, a couple 1-person shows, and some cabaret style performances. So very small. The stage area is certainly large enough for a lot of social distancing. And the 25 feet, we're actually hopeful that by the time we open, which is right around August 1st, that we might be into a place where we don't have to have 25 feet between the audience and the actors, because that's a lot of space when you're trying to do, you know, socially distanced, intimate theater. We have a number of exits and entrances. I think my picture just went away. I know it well enough, but so there are 2 entrances and 3 exits. That way we can socially distance people as they come into the theater. Along the sides, which are the actual sidewalks off to the right here, if you can see, you guys can't see my cursor, but there'll be socially distanced queuing as well. So there'll be those little 6 feet dots. Central Square is covered in pink right now. Everything is called Hello Again. So we'll be using that same brand for the pink welcoming Hello Again campaign. It'll be a lot like airline seating. My staff is working really hard on working all that out. So you'll be queued to come at a certain time, about in 15 to 20-minute intervals to arrive. And then we also have some emergency late seating, because we know that happens. People will be required to wear face masks, ticketless entry. There are some concessions, but they will be handled by the bid and separate from an entrance. So if you want to not go anywhere close to those, you don't have to in order to enter. I think our biggest challenges are keeping the actors safe. We have a pretty, the actors have their own entrance and exit. They do not have to go past any audiences at any time, nor does the stage manager. They have a way to go through the scaffolding that keeps them safe. I think we have a rigorous testing protocol as well. So 72-hour testing before rehearsal and performance, and then weekly as we go forward. I think, yeah, I mean, we're assuming people will come back. I think that our early indication says that they will if they feel safe. And again, this space was built for COVID. So we're hopeful that they'll come back.
Kathy, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for bearing it with us as we are experiencing a couple of challenges with our Zoom. So thank you, Kathy. And it's really exciting to see this project take flight. So next we're going to hear from Rosemary Gill of the Zeiterion Performing Arts Center. I also just want to make a note. I know that we are at 10 o'clock. If you'll bear with us, we're going to go over just a little bit. We have David Kuhn from the Cotuit Arts Center, and then I'll be making some final remarks, but I promise we'll get you out of there real quick. I know it's a Friday. So thank you, Rosemary, for joining us and talking about the Zeiterion Performing Arts Center.
Sure. The Zeiterion, thanks for having me. The Zeiterion is in New Bedford, Massachusetts on the waterfront. We're actually a historic building located right downtown. We're in a unique position compared to everyone else who's presenting this morning. We are actually not opening for quite a while. At least we just announced that we won't, that we've postponed and rescheduled everything through October 31st. And it's very likely that that will be extended at least through the end of the year. We are a presenting organization, which means that we don't create art, which means we don't have access to art, and we rely on touring artists. And after several months of scenario testing to determine, what is possible, and especially given capacity restrictions, we determined that reduced capacity just doesn't work in our the way that we normally operate. Despite that, or on top of that, we started to hear from our touring artists, performing artists, that they were unwilling to return. And so they're not getting on buses, they're not, they're not doing their tours. And so they started asking us to reschedule any dates that we had in the late summer, fall, and early winter. So it kind of was taken out of our hands. We have pivoted to some extent though, so that we could show kind of proof of life. We are doing, we have a creative classroom series that we are doing virtually. And then for a couple of weeks, and what you're seeing on screen right now is a photo of our drive-in movie and concert series, which we did in a parking lot, a really vast parking lot, which is what is required. You're seeing it set up for a movie. What we did was we hope to find, we hope to be able to continue this through the fall. We needed at least a 400 space parking lot because the requirements were that if we wanted people to have the ability to get out of their car, which people want to do, they want to put their beach chairs and stuff, or they want to open up their tailgate and all of that, we were required to keep cars, only utilize every other space. And you'll see, it's a little dark, but you'll see that cars are staggered in kind of a checkerboard fashion, with the exception of one row of people who said that they weren't going to get out of their car. So they were able to park side by side, but the rest were staggered to leave space in between. Just by the nature of both the stage and the distance we had to have for the projector, we're able to be about 35 feet away from the audience. And so this is what we're hoping to do to get us through the remainder of this year. And we're hoping that we'll be ready to open in January. We have a 1,200 seat theater, and because we are historic, our lobby alone, if we were to maintain any type of social distancing, we would get about 10 people in the lobby. And it's just not economically viable or feasible to do so between the lobby, the restrooms, and the backstage area, the green room, the dressing rooms. We just weren't able to figure out any way that we could keep people socially distanced. And
Thanks. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, thanks, Rosemary. Thank you for sharing that. And also highlighting that these guidelines are guidelines for how to reopen. They are not requirements that we all reopen. We are all figuring this out together. And as Rosemary said there, I loved how you put it, the proof of life and proof of activity. We are doing that all in different ways. So thank you for sharing that, Rosemary. I'm gonna move us along to David with the Katuitt Center for the Arts. So David, you are on Cape Cod. How are you approaching reopening for your multi-use venue and community arts center?
So we have a multi-use campus here where we have several buildings, and you're looking at a photograph of our main theater building, which generally seats about 200 people. We we're using the government guidelines, but working with our local officials to come up with maximum flexibility for being able to open performances. What we've done is, if you can see where the seats are on a wooden raked grid that is sectional, we've taken that apart and stored it in the upstairs balcony opposite where you see the stairs on the second level. We took the stage apart and we're reorienting the room, which is a rectangle, so that we have a portable stage at one end of it where, and again, to Catherine's point, the 25-foot recommendation from performers to an audience is really limiting, but we want to follow the strictest guidelines so that when they loosen, we can be flexible. One advantage we have is that this room is not built as a traditional theater in which seats are bolted to the floor where the actual floor is raked. So we do have a flat 8,000 square foot space that we can be flexible. We also have a similar we have a tiny black box theater, and in between the two buildings is a lawn area where we already have a liquor license covers that area, so that we have a full license. People can walk around with a drink in that area from one building to another. We do not have an entertainment license that maps onto that outdoor space. So now we're working with the town on the outdoor space where we're doing no music, only 1 or 2 person plays that were planned to be in the other building, and maybe like an equivalent of a selected shorts story slam type event. Our local officials are still insisting on 25 feet outdoors with no music, a single actor. So we think that we'll be relaxed by the end of the summer, but we're also reorienting that space in order to accommodate the 25 people. We're also being very careful on anything written with the town that we are saying, we're not putting any numbers like we will limit to 25. It's like we are following all guidelines as suggested by the Commonwealth, so that when the expansions happen or when the rules change, which they do every week, we don't have to go back to a meeting process. But all in all, it's been a pretty good experience working with the local officials and community. And so we're hoping to be opening performance the first week of August. We have an art gallery as well. And so we have been open for 3 weeks with private tours only. And the only other thing I would mention, Emily, is that we did purchase an atomizing sanitation machine to go into all of the buildings and be able to clean them, super clean them at the end of each day. That's our plan.
Thanks, David. So thank you all. I want to thank Alexis, Rosemary, Jody, David, Cappy, for your time this morning and for your creativity and your sharing your approaches to all of this work. You'll see, right, I've got on the screen, I've got, this is the MASSCreative team that we've got right now. You see all of our contact information. We are all working on this right now, as many of you are. So shoot us a note or drop us a note if you need anything. I also just want to add a piece, which is that reopening right now is doing a number of things. It's allowing us to continue to remind people that we exist. It's in many cases keeping our employees employed and providing support and employment to some of our artists. but it is, in many cases and in most cases, not going to make us whole. And reopening and reduced capacities is something that I unfortunately think we are going to have to continue to work through for the foreseeable future. And that means that we need to be advocating for federal and state support and safety nets to keep our sector alive right now. We know how important the creative and cultural community is in Massachusetts, not simply because it brings people together, connects us, shares joy, but also because it is an important economic muscle of the Commonwealth. And if the Commonwealth wants to be able to have a full economic recovery, protecting the creative sector in this moment when we are not able to be at our full capacity is incredibly important. In the coming week, you will receive a wrap-up email where you'll get contact information for all of our speakers and their organizations, but you'll also get some actions that you can take to encourage both our federal and our state elected officials to continue to support and find ways to protect our industries right now. Our next webinar is going to be in 2 weeks, next Friday. It will be on July 24th. Have a good weekend, all. We are so glad to have you here with us and doing this work together. And get outside this weekend. See you all.
Emily.
Bye.